right, so you had an exciting session about one of the crucial transitional trends, which is the quantum computing. Now, we are obviously massively using AI. I saw in the parking lot there was a sea of Teslas, and I'm sure all of you have used that AI software to drive you and park you here. In the morning on the sustainability, Dr. Arun Majumdar said that it took 1 million years for the one third of the humanity for the population of one third billion people, right? And for last 10,000 years, researchers have observed that the first words of a baby had been ma, 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 or ba, 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 like that, until AI. I just found out in an article that a baby had the first words Alexa after hearing Alexa, Alexa, Alexa in their home all the time. So you can see how massively we are using AI, right? But AI is dominated by all these data scientists and algorithm inventors and so on. But how about the rest of us? How about if I can use AI for my travel plan optimization, or at the office, why can't I use AI to see how can I correctly project the sales target on which I was going to work on? So these are the no-code and or a low-code apps that are coming, and that is the democratization of AI I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to invite Sudip. Sudip, why don't you? So the next session on this exciting subject of democratization of AI, and I'll introduce Sudip Chakrabarti, who will introduce the rest of the speakers. Sudip, an IIT Kharagpur alumni, and also did his PhD at Georgia Tech. He is now the VC partner at Decibel Partners, and previously he had been with Madrano Ventures and Lightspeed Ventures, and also was at Mark Andreessen's famous, the numero name, A16Z Ventures. Sudip had many, many successes. The two I can remember is Heptio, a $500 billion acquisition by VMware, and I think the another one was by Splunk, I think, if you remember. So I will hand it over to Sudip, and please welcome Sudip Majumdar. Sudip Chakrabarti, sorry.
That's all right. Thanks, Ashish. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Sudip Chakrabarti. Before we get started, just by a quick show of hands, how many here are IIT Kharagpur alumni? All right. You all went to the best IIT, you know? I try. So we're going to get started. And just setting up the chairs. Very quickly, let me just give you a quick introduction. I think Ashish covered more of my background than I knew, frankly. But I'm actually a partner at a firm called Decibel Partners. For those of you who don't know Decibel, we started about 3 years ago. The whole idea is to build a firm that is specialized, it's a venture firm, sorry, to build a venture firm that is specialized on enterprise software. So we invest anywhere from $2 to $12 million in seed and Series A, partnering in 100% of cases technical founders. We even have IIT founders in our portfolio now. And then we bring in a set of founder services that we believe are super useful to founders in the first 2 to 3 years of building their businesses. So any of you are planning to start companies, think about startup companies, look us up, please. On that note, let me welcome the panel. I think we have all of us here. Come on, guys. Arvind, Shikhar, Sadi, and Peeyush. Just grab a seat, no order. So the panel topic, as Ashish was saying earlier, is democratizing AI. Frankly, it took me a conversation with Ashish to realize what we are going to talk about, because it is kind of in the midst of everything we do when it comes to AI and artificial intelligence. So we actually have here a great set of speakers with a mix of entrepreneurial experience, great engineering experience, and some large company experience. So why don't I pass the mic around, or you guys are actually mic'd up, and then ask them to do quick intros. I am going to be a harsh timekeeper, as we talked. We only have 25 minutes for this. With that, Arvind, why don't you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, thanks, Sudip. My name is Arvind. I'm the CEO of Glen. Mic not working? Glen. No, this is mine. Can you hear me now? Okay. Yeah, hi, my name is Arvind. I'm the CEO of Glen. Glen is a workplace search company. Think of it as Google for your workplace. We help employees in a company find answers to their questions, using all the knowledge that exists within your company. And my background before that, I was doing another startup called Rubrik, which we had started in 2014. And before that, I worked at Google for over a decade, and a few other startups, Riverbed and Akamai before that. I'm from IIT Delhi. Thank you.
All right. Shikhar, you want to go next?
Hello, everyone. This is Shikhar. I'm co-founder, CTO of a company called Spotnana. Come from IIT Delhi 2012 computer science batch. So you have heard of SaaS and PaaS. What we are introducing is TaaS, which is travel as a service. So just like you have AWS and component, it has different components. For technology, we are rebuilding the entire travel stack from scratch. So other companies like fintech companies can use the platform to offer travel as a point redemption. Then other airlines can use to push custom content to the travelers. Hotels can use it. As a first consumer of our own platform, Spotnana is building a corporate travel solution. If you might have used Concur and American Express, so we are the ones who are replacing corporate travel globally. So that's what we are doing. And yeah.
Thank you.
And we recently raised Series B of $75 million. So if you guys are looking, we are hiring actively. So yeah.
Thanks, Shikhar. Peeyush?
Am I audible? Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Peeyush Rai, CEO and founder of Weav.ai. My background has been tech for most part of my career, and in particular, last 10 to 15 years, I've been very close to data and building AI-based applications and platforms. And after struggling to deliver essentially the time to deliver the business value using AI and ML, I decided last year that there has to be a better way of doing the entire thing, where we can take a problem that requires an AI or ML approach and not taking one to 2 years to realize business value, but that has to become as iterative as the traditional software has become these days. So that's what we are doing with Weav.ai. Prior to this, I was with various startups, and long back I used to work at Oracle as well, so I've been very close to data. But data has been my passion for a long time, and now we are sort of going on this journey to democratize AI.
Thanks, Peeyush. Saving the best for the last?
Absolutely. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Sati. I run the product business, the data product business at LTI. I started life at GE, spent a long time in insights consulting, and then I built a company called Limbic, which built a product in the augmented intelligence, decision intelligence these days space. Got acquired, and that's how I've landed doing what I do now, which is running a suite of 5 products, all in the space of data. And my journey has been around insights principally, which has progressed from very early days to using a lot of AI. So glad to be here.
Thanks. So Sati brings in the big company experience, selling to large enterprises. Peeyush, Shikhar, and Arvind all have the founder experience and also working at Google in some cases. So, Arvind, let me start with you. Given what you guys do, which is really kind of helping employees search through this massive enterprise data, when you think about democratizing artificial intelligence, what comes to your mind?
Yeah, great question. I think when you talk about democratization, I see it two different ways. One, like how are all of us as individuals, as employees, benefiting from all the advances that are happening in AI? And second, like, as entrepreneurs, as people wanting to build products, how easy is it for you to use AI and incorporate that in your products? So in the first case, like, all of us have benefited from AI technologies for a long, long time. For example, Google search has been, using artificial intelligence for decades and bringing those smarts back to us and helping us find things. But they had the resources to do that. They had the business to do it, and it was not easy for other companies to build products and as easily use AI in their products. So that is one thing that has changed over the last few years, where AI has now become a lot more accessible to developers, to product builders, and as a result, we as consumers now see AI embedded in all the products that we use. So that's what I feel is ushering in this wave of bringing AI and democratizing it for everyone.
And how about adoption, Sadi? What do you see going on in the market when it comes to adopting? And I'm mostly talking about non-engineering teams, right? Marketing, sales, finance. Like, is it a fundamental obstacle in pushing some of those things through?
I think the best way to look at is for all of, especially the segment of users you spoke about, anybody who's a non-technical person, the best way to get them to adopt AI is to make AI invisible, right? Because the more, we are in a world that's increasingly technology-centric. And that means that we are creating another class or another set of classism, right, which is the tech and the non-tech. And to make that non-tech set inclusive, it means that AI has to be invisible. So to give you an example, the product that we built was about how do you use AI to create insights, right? Insights, and when we say insights, we're not talking about summarizing information, which is classical BI or an extension of BI. But we're talking about deeper level questions, why something happened, what was going to happen forward. Classically, we'll call it forecasting, diagnostics. Now, the use of these terms themselves throws people off, right? What are people most comfortable asking when they want a diagnostic? Why did it happen? Now, what we should be able to do is allow them to just ask the question and get the information they need to work on it. That drives adoption. But the moment I say, hey, you got this black box, and this black box is going to run a random forest model, and that random forest model output is going to be X, Y, Z, and if it is, X or Y, this is how you interpret it, we've lost them.
Got it. Let me shift gears a little bit and go towards more like the technology stack, right? I think when you talk about open source in many other areas, it's really leveled the field between large companies and small companies. Peeyush, what's your thoughts on how you see open source possibly doing that for AI as well?
Yeah, I think as we have seen over the past, I would say 5 years, open source has really sort of become really helpful in making AI accessible to developers. And a lot of the large tech companies have actually produced a lot of good open source frameworks that are now being used in enterprises. The challenge with open source is, as we all know, is taking open source and making it production ready is always a challenge, because it is open source and it has its own sort of limitations. I think that's one of the things that needs to be bridged, because every company cannot build everything.
Right.
And so leveraging open source across the stack, but at the same time sort of taking it to a layer which can be then made accessible to the enterprise in a more sort of reliable and robust and secure way would be something that is very important in the coming years.
And then I'm going to jump back to Shikhar. On that note, do you see AI as a, like do you see businesses being more successful where AI might be a standalone platform, or do you see this just as a means to, achieving some business objectives? How are you guys, thinking about it at Spotnana?
Yeah, so I think there are various components. So if you look at the research, there are research groups like in Facebook and Google or academics, right? So then it's sort of a standalone where they're trying to advance AI. Now for businesses, we need to figure out whether the AI is an enabler or is it enhancing experience. Right? So if it's an enabler, like for example, face recognition or say self-driving cars where you need to recognize objects around, then it becomes an enabler and it's very important. It's not a feature of a product. For us, it's an enhanced experience. So for example, when you're traveling and you have a board meeting or visiting client, we want to recommend you flights which we know probably in historically has not been delayed because of some weather conditions, right? Or personalization, or companies spend billions of dollars on travel, on corporate travel. So can you now make some policies, or can you recommend them policies where they can save cost on flights or hotels? So that becomes a cost-saving opportunity. So really depends on what the business use case is.
Got it. Let me ask anyone else, do you have a different viewpoints? I mean, we don't all want to be agreeing with each other, right? And Arvind, if you have any different viewpoint. Like, do you think AI is just a means to an end, or is it something you see, particularly with your Google experience, do you see it as a standalone platform on its own right?
Well, I mean, I think the way I see the future is that AI is going to be a critical component of all the products, almost all the products that we use in our daily lives. The potential of these new technologies, where the computers are really understanding content, knowledge, data, it's actually enabling us to build really smart products. So it's a big enabler, and it's actually also, from that point of view, is going to be a required part of like any modern product that's going to get built in the future. Because if you don't, embrace and leverage, the smarts that machines are able to bring to you, then your products are going to fall behind.
By the way, we will take one or two questions from the audience towards the end. So, feel free to have your questions ready. Lochan, can I get a 5-minute warning towards the end, please, so that we can invite some audience questions? Thank you. How about data, Arvind? We all probably will agree that AI is as powerful as your training data. It seems to us, particularly sitting on the venture side, all the large companies have almost like a lock on the data. I mean, they're only getting better. I'm talking about the FANGs of the world. You guys are pretty young company from that standpoint. How do you guys kind of taking on that challenge, solving that problem, really?
That's a great question. So I don't think the right strategy for startups or entrepreneurs is to compete with Google or Facebook. They have data from billions of users, and they have hundreds of thousands of machines and all the resources to build really large-scale models. One of the big areas of AI today is basically taking knowledge and or text and building these deep learning language models. So it's definitely very hard to compete. I don't think that startups as such can directly compete and build better models. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, these large companies are actually making these models available to you. Right. And because that's actually it's in their interest, they actually get a pie of that reward for building those models. And really what's going to happen in the future is that startups will take these base models that Google is publishing or other large companies are, and then they're going to actually adapt those for their domain. So for example, there could be a startup that is trying to actually bring intelligence to the healthcare section. Right? You want to actually build a product where doctors can actually take a patient record and instantly get insights into that using AI. So that will not happen. Google is not going to do it. That requires taking that these really large scale trained models but then you have to actually retrain them, you know, in your domain and actually make them more effective there. So that's how I see the future, is that we will, like, you know, there's going to be this ecosystem where there are platform providers like OpenAI or Google that actually launch, you know, these huge models. But then there are all these startups like ours which are going to take those models and make it work for your domain. Which is what we're doing today. You know, with Glen also, the same thing. You know, we're building a search engine for work, and we couldn't have built like these big models that Google has built, but we take them and then we actually retrain them at every customer of ours, and, you know, make it learn the language of that customer.
Yeah.
That's how I see the future evolving in this.
Peeyush, hope you have a different viewpoint.
Yeah, it's actually just elaborating. It's not a different viewpoint, but you know, I think there's a misnomer that large amount of data is the key to AI. It's I think along with the data, which this is going to happen in the next few years, we are going to realize is the context of the data is actually even more important. Right. And each business has their own context, right? Google's and Facebook's, they have their own context for their use cases. Like he said, right? It's each enterprise has their own data, and nobody else can replicate that context outside. So what will happen is, you know, rather than using all these generic models which are very effective for a very generic use case, maybe as a assisting technology, each business will actually need to build their own capabilities to really get the context and then leverage that context to generate the insights and the predictions and so on.
So, you know, I don't think I have a counterfactual point here.
You might have to speak up. Sorry.
Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay. But it's a different dimension that I want to bring in. See, the point that you just made, right, and the question that you asked, there is a foundational layer that, you know, we've all started off. Now, if you think about, and the FANGs of the world, you know, they build their moats around it, right? They release all of this to the rest of the general public because they're obviously well ahead. Where the future moats will come from for smaller companies, if you really look at it, is going to be from two things, right? And both of which lie in the area of applicability. One is what you said, context. The other is the data, right? When you combine this, you get the meta context, if I may put it that way, right? So what you're using it for, and what data you are creating. So that training data, as it gets deeper and deeper, that is a moat in itself. Now, if you think about adding context to it, right? And if I have to sort of think technically, you know, knowledge graphs, you know, building your knowledge graphs. So that data that you've created in a very specific context, and then the knowledge graph that allows you to mine it better, and therefore make that very, how should I call it, to increase the precision of what you're solving.
Right.
That is going to be the future mode.
Right. So I would agree with that.
Yeah, I'll extend on it. I think from startup perspective, I think one is data and all, but really a startup survives on other parameters like a differentiator,
Right.
a go-to-market strategy, how big the market size is, the problems you're solving. It can be, differentiator can be in business model. It can be on technology side. So I think from a startup perspective, what really like people here are focusing on startup is not focus too much like on AI or technology. First, figure out your business use case and what are you building which differentiates. Like why would Sudip fund you, right? Why would customers buy?
I already funded you.
So I think so that's the thing. I think from a startup perspective, I think technology is an enabler, I think. So the business use case matters, the business context matters.
And I would add one other thing which I think all of you are saying, which is, of course, you start with some data, with some base model, but I think the way you succeed is how do you collect first-party data that is very unique to your product, and how does your product get better with that? Let me take a quick pause. Any questions from the audience? All right, I'll go. Wait, you're the most enthusiastic. Go ahead.
What are the thoughts of the panelists on making sure that you build in non-discriminatory AI upfront?
So AI can be used for a lot of discriminatory applications. How do you kind of avoid that? Anyone?
Can you hand your mic to Sudip?
Oh, okay.
I borrowed that.
No, it's a, if you think about the flip side of adoption, if you think about the flip side of the direction which is moving, it is a serious concern, right? And it is the bigger challenge is that it could happen unintentionally. In fact, most of the risk will actually come from there. Now, there are, ground up, how should I call it, a scientific way of looking at it, right? So when you think about everything that we are doing, explainable AI, for example, right? When you think about what you're trying to do, which is to try and understand how it arrived at it. When you look at intersectional fairness, for example, when you look at bias and variance. So, there are a whole bunch of ground up views, scientific views, technical views that we're building to try and identify the source. But our challenge today is this. You can figure out, and it's still a work in progress, how and why. What we are still struggling with is once you've done it, how do you solve it? What do you do with your training data to solve for it? Are you going to introduce more bias? So two things. So one is that I think there is a lot of work happening in this, and it's still work in progress. And the unsolved problem here, there are two parts. One is sort of, once you identify, how do you intervene? And the second is, the classic, who watches the watcher, right? And that is, so I think a lot of regulatory work is also needed to provide those guardrails in how the data is used. So one part is models and how the models function. The second part is also, what data is being used and for what purpose. So I don't know if I have an answer for you here, but I'm just telling you where we stand on this journey.
We have, this person raised the hand first, so I'm biased toward him. All right.
My question is more fundamental. I was involved with AI in the mid-'80s, and obviously it's researched. Still having a hard time understanding what intelligence means. There are 4 stages, as I can see from all the decades I've looked at it. First stage was rules, we're past that. Second stage is patterns. We're stuck in it for the last 4 decades, and will be for another few. The third stage is understanding causality. That, I think, is maybe 50 years away. And the last stage, I think, will be inventing, creating data points outside the box and making the links. And that's when we have to head for the hills. I just wondered, when do you think, with quantum computing, for example, we could get into causality? Right now, I think it's still many decades away.
Did you catch it? I didn't understand.
Yeah, even if you can just repeat the question one.
Causality is the next step in intelligence. Right now, we do a lot of correlation and come up with relationships that have no sense to the computer. So it's just matching patterns, and that's basically what we're doing. We're taking more data, massaging more data, having more algorithms processed. But that's not really understanding what's underlying it. Even the Turing test is still about association, not understanding. The next stage is understanding causality.
See, if I may reframe your question, you were saying today AI is all about identifying patterns, finding patterns in your training data and kind of almost being a black box that inferences. How do you go from that to understanding why that is happening, the causality of it? I don't know, we have 2 Google alumni here. I know you were at Google Brain. I don't know if either of you want to take that question, or Sadi or Peeyush.
I can share some thoughts. So I think if we talk about democratization of AI, I think for the next 5 years, a lot of the low-hanging fruit in the industry, especially for enterprises, is going to be the machine learning part, which is basically looking at old, existing data and then projecting it forward using various statistical techniques. And I think that is going to solve a large number of problems. Of course, there are deep learning models that are now being developed, neural network-based techniques, which will, at the end of the day, even our brain learns with data. So the data has to be there. It's, there's no sort of, without that, but essentially the neural networks can learn like our brain, and eventually that will become more and more accessible.
Got it.
But I would say next 5 years, if, today the enterprise adoption of even machine learning models is so low that I think for the next 5 years, even if we achieve that, I think it will be a huge.
Lochan, one last question. Time for one last question.
Oh,
I'll just
okay.
go around the panel real quick.
Sure.
Quickly, I mean, you have created 2 unicorns now. You are on your way to create your first one. You have exited multiple companies and just started. And Sadi, you are probably on the buyer side and advisor side with a lot of this. Advice for people here who are thinking of starting either AI platform companies or AI-driven product companies. Keep it short, but please, go ahead.
Well, my advice to entrepreneurs always, number one, is believe in your idea. People always talk about, 90% of the startups fail, and I always like to correct them that 99.9% fail because
we don't say that to entrepreneurs.
You are the first one killing your own ideas. So I mean, this is a space, this is a field where so much innovation is going to happen. Many influential people have said that this is really the fourth massive wave of technological revolution. Like starting with personal computing, then internet, mobile, and now AI. So opportunities are galore. Like there are so many things to do. If you have a problem in mind, just go and work on it and don't give up.
Great answer. Shikhar?
Yeah, for me, it's, so I've had a failed startup, and I worked at Google and TensorFlow, and now hopefully a unicorn. I think the reason my company failed, as I mentioned before, was there are so many moving parts to a startup, right? So just figure out where does AI fit in, right? Is it an enabler? Is it a blocker? Does it enhance your experience? But there are 100 different things on hiring and go-to-market and product research and market research and business model. So focus on those things. You would hear most of the companies, and I'm not saying about this panel, but many companies claim that they're doing AI when there's a bunch of if-else statements in the code and, making those decisions. And it's okay, because at the end, as a startup, to survive, you want to solve a business use case. And your focus should always be on the milestones. Hey, seed round, what do I need to do? Go to Series A and then Series B. So if you're just focused, perseverance, what Arvind mentioned, and just execution. At the end of the day, it's just execution. And just see where AI fits in. You don't have to fit in if it doesn't fit. But if it is there, please use it.
I think we used to have a fancy name for it than else, expert systems, right? Go ahead, Peeyush.
Yeah, no, I think this is a great time for data and AI startups to start. So if you have the motivation to sort of think about that, I would say definitely, this is a great time, and this is just, we're just starting off in this domain, right? This is, I would say, next 10 years are going to be extremely exciting, and that's a reasonable amount of time for somebody to start a company and build it and make it large. I think the key value, whatever you're doing, right? I've done several startups in AI and data and others, but the key thing that I've learned is, what you need to be convinced of is whether your users and customers, can you provide value to them, right? Monetization, pricing, all those things come later, but if you are building something, if you can build something which is inherently providing value to a large number of users or customers, I think that's, if you're convinced of that, then just go for it. And there's no right time or wrong time to start. I just raised a seed round for my company recently. This is obviously a tough time for investment, but people are investing and VCs are investing and companies are raising money. So as long as the value creation is there, and doesn't have to be like a monetary number, but if it's a large enough problem that you're solving, I think just go for it.
Very well put. And by the way, one data point just came out from Wilson Sonsini was in Q2, the valuation and amount raised for early stage companies actually went up. It's a very different scenario if you are like much later stage, but actually at early stage it's different. Last answer, please.
Sure. The fundamental principles of starting up do not change, regardless of what space you're in. And that's what you were hearing, right? The only two things I'll add to everything you heard. One is the boundedness of what you're trying to solve. You have to be very clear, because you can go completely all over the place if your problem is not a bounded problem. And the second part is that if you're using AI, one of the biggest challenges of AI is industrializing it. That is where the algorithm will become an if-then statement, right? So if AI is a core part, and like you've heard from the other panelists, it doesn't have to be, but if it is a core part of it, you have to be very clear how you're using it, where you're using it, so bound it, and to figure out how to industrialize it.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. We really appreciate the time.